Welcome to the deep dive. Ever wonder how the software we use every day manages to, well, not just work when everything's going right, but also when things go a bit haywire? Today, we're diving into something called negative testing. It's a critical part of making software strong.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of like deliberately trying to break the software in a controlled way, of course.
Right, to make it more robust, so it doesn't just fall over when something unexpected happens.
Exactly. And we've looked at some really good material on this. Our plan is to sort of unpack that for you, show you how this behind-the-scenes effort makes the software you rely on more stable.
Sounds good. We'll look at what it is, maybe some examples, and why it's actually so important.
Yeah, why it matters to the people making it and, importantly, to you using it.
Okay, let's jump in then. What is negative testing exactly? It sounds a bit counterintuitive, like you said, trying to make things fail.
It does a bit. So, positive testing is what we usually think about first. Does the software do what it's supposed to do when you use it normally? Valid inputs, expected actions, all
Yeah,
that.
a happy path.
The happy path, exactly. Negative testing is, well, it's the flip side. You're deliberately feeding it incorrect data, unexpected conditions, maybe even things that look like malicious inputs.
Ah, okay.
The goal isn't to check if it works correctly under normal circumstances, but to see how it reacts when things go wrong. Does it handle it gracefully?
So, like, if there's a box for an email address, instead of user@example.com, you might put in just user, or maybe a string of random numbers, or even try to put some code in there.
Precisely. Or leave it blank. Or put characters in a phone number field. The point is to verify the software doesn't just, crash or become unstable.
You should handle it somehow, maybe give an error message.
Right, a polite error message. Ideally, not just a system meltdown. It could involve checking wrong data types, oversized files, things that simulate hacking attempts. It's all about preventing those system failures.
And making it more robust overall.
Yeah, improving robustness. Now, we should be clear. It's probably impossible to make something 100% error-free.
Right.
But negative testing drastically cuts down the chances of really serious problems happening.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It's like designing for the what-ifs. The material we looked at had a really good analogy, didn't it? Something about a lift or an elevator.
Oh, yeah. The lift analogy, it's quite helpful. So positive testing for a lift is simple. Press 5, the doors close, it goes to floor 5, doors open. Works as expected. Negative testing asks the what-if questions. What if too many people get in, exceeding the weight limit?
Okay.
What if the smoke detector goes off inside? What if there's a power cut while it's between floors?
Right. These aren't normal operations, but you absolutely need the lift to handle them safely. You don't want it just dropping or trapping people.
Exactly. It's not supposed to happen, but the system needs built-in responses for safety and reliability. That same thinking applies directly to software.
And there was another example too, right? A registration form.
Yeah, that's a classic software example. Positive testing. You enter a valid email, a proper phone number, upload a small JPEG image. Everything follows the rules.
There's a form.
Negative testing. You try an email without an @ symbol. You put letters in the phone number field. You try uploading a giant video file instead of a small image.
Or maybe even weirder file types, like the example mentioned XML or SQL file.
Exactly. You try uploading things that definitely aren't images, like XML, maybe even something that looks like SQL code.
Okay, now that sounds like it could be more than just an error message if the system doesn't handle that right.
That's where it gets really critical. It's not just about the system possibly crashing. If it mishandles certain inputs, especially things like SQL code slipped into a form field.
That's the SQL injection thing.
Right,
Yeah.
precisely. SQL injection. If the system isn't built defensively, if it doesn't validate inputs properly, someone could potentially inject malicious database commands.
And that could let them do
What?
Steal data.
Steal data, definitely. Access user accounts, maybe even delete information or take control of parts of the system. It's a major security vulnerability.
Oh.
And uploading malicious file types could be another vector, maybe introducing viruses.
Yeah.
So negative testing here isn't just about stability, it's fundamentally about security too. It often involves probing those boundaries, looking for ways to exploit trust, trying single quotes, semicolons, things used in SQL.
Okay, so this is clearly super important. It's not just about avoiding minor glitches, it's core to security. Let's talk about why it's so crucial. The sources mentioned perspectives from both the company making the software and the client using it. What's the company angle?
Well, from the organization side, it's really about responsibility. They have a duty to deliver a quality, reasonably secure product.
Sure.
Negative testing acts as a confirmation against potentially serious failures. Like we said, maybe not 100% bug-free, but you aim to prevent the big damaging stuff.
Like that e-commerce example. A security breach there could be devastating.
Absolutely. Huge financial loss, massive reputation damage, and especially for software that's out there on the web, used by anyone. You have very little control over what people might try to do.
Right. You can't just assume everyone will use it properly.
You really can't. So
Yeah.
you need to anticipate misuse, anticipate potential attacks. Negative testing is key to that.
Okay. And from the client's perspective, or the end user, why should they care if the company is doing this? It might make things take longer, cost more.
That's true. There can be that perception. But clients, especially for important applications, they expect a certain level of security. Often they expect zero vulnerabilities, particularly if it's handling money or sensitive data.
Like online banking or trading platforms.
Exactly, those kinds. For things like that, the expectation is incredibly high. So while a client might initially balk at the time or cost, it's really about risk management. The potential cost of not doing thorough negative testing, a security breach, data loss, is often far, far greater than the upfront investment in testing. It's about protecting their interests, their data, their money.
It's an investment in trust and safety, really.
That's a good way to put it.
So, okay, it's important, but how do you actually do it? It feels like you could just keep thinking of weird things to try forever. Where do you draw the line?
That's a very practical question. You're right, you can't test literally every possibility. It would be endless. The key is being systematic and, crucially, prioritizing.
Okay.
First, you brainstorm. Try to think of all the ways someone could misuse the system, even if it seems silly or unlikely. Think like a user who makes mistakes, but also think a bit like someone trying to break in.
Get creative with ways to mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. Then, the critical part, prioritize. You look at all those potential negative scenarios and assess the impact. What's the worst that could happen if this test fails?
So focus on the big risks first.
Right, like the material mentioned with the image upload. Let's say it only expects PNG files.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to upload a JPEG might cause an error, maybe annoying, but probably low impact. Trying to upload an executable file or slip in SQL code, that's potentially high impact, a serious security risk.
So you test the SQL injection attempt before you worry too much about the JPEG.
You certainly give it much higher priority, yes. Focus your energy where the potential damage is greatest. It's about risk-based testing.
That makes sense. Allocate resources effectively. Now, like anything, I assume there are pros and cons to focusing heavily on negative testing.
Definitely. Let's start with the pros. We've touched on most already. Big one. It significantly boosts product quality, aiming for that, zero vulnerability ideal or getting closer to it.
Builds confidence.
Builds confidence, absolutely.
Yeah.
It covers a much wider range of potential problems, user errors, intentional attacks, weird edge cases. So higher quality, more confidence.
Okay. And the downsides, the cons.
Well, the big one is time and effort. It can be really time-consuming, potentially resource-intensive,
Yeah.
and maybe sometimes a bit excessive. Like, for a very simple application used by one person, maybe you don't need the same level of intense negative testing as a major banking website.
Right. Context matters.
Context is key. Also, it requires skilled testers. You need people who can think that way, anticipate vulnerabilities, understand potential attack vectors. It's not just random button pushing.
It takes experience.
It does. And then there's the client perception issue we mentioned. Some might see it mainly as adding cost or delaying the launch. You need to communicate the value clearly. And one final risk, perhaps, is getting too focused on the negative. You could potentially spend so much time trying to break things that you don't spend enough time confirming the main features actually work correctly under normal conditions, the positive testing.
So finding the right balance is important.
It's always about balance, yeah. You need both positive and negative testing working together.
So wrapping it up, negative testing is really about being proactive, isn't it? It's about looking beyond the ideal scenario and building software that's prepared for the messy reality of errors, accidents, and even malicious intent.
That sums it up perfectly. It's a fundamental part of building software that's not just functional, but genuinely robust, reliable, and trustworthy. By thinking about what could go wrong, we make systems much stronger.
This has been really enlightening. It definitely gives you a new appreciation for the unseen work that goes into making our technology dependable day to day.
It does. And maybe it leaves you, our listener, with a thought. How could you apply this principle, anticipating the negative, the unexpected inputs or conditions in other parts of your life or work, beyond just software? Where else could overlooking those what-ifs lead to significant problems? Definitely something to think about.
A great final thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
See you next time.